everyone, Ashley Mailloux, Scott Shapiro here, taking a look at the Thursday race of the day for October 9th. We'll go to Lexington, Kentucky, go to Keeneland. They have a 10-race program, a couple of turf races, actually 3 on the card. We'll focus in on the sort of middle of everything. Race number 6, which is an interesting race. It's a 5.5 furlong turf sprint as we take a look at the field here, but there's a condition on this allowance event. It's for horses that do not want a graded sweepstakes on the turf. So like always to see a kind of a race office trying something different. This opens up the waters a little bit because we do know allowance races can get very tough. And when you look at Keeneland or Del Mar, Scott, sometimes they feel like a stakes race. This is going to be an interesting one to dive into. And in terms of the morning line, kind of looking at the bookends here of the starting gate with the 1 and the 8 being the lower prices.
Yes, and good point. Always read the conditions if you're an up-and-comer trying to learn here. The key to read conditions always. This race, as Ashley mentioned, the key is not to have won a graded stake on the turf. Pretty easy to figure out, but creative. And it is nice to see allowance races at Keeneland like this, where you don't have to run against, the best of the best if you don't want, but still have a nice purse. And this is an interesting race. I think there's some talent in here. I think there's some separation, though, from the top couple to the next crew.
And we will take a look at the time, form, and pace projection here for the 5.5 furlong turf sprint. You can see favors front runners, and it looks like Big Boat is going to try the turf for the first time, could be in the mix from more towards the inside of the starting gate. The 8 Operation Sunrise, that one would be shocking based on the efforts at Ellis and Kentucky Downs. But it is interesting to see the 7 Mischief River be somewhat in the mix, also knowing that you're going to see he carries the LP, the late pace flag.
That is intriguing, and I think it kind of speaks to the fact that there's not a ton of speed for a race of this nature. It's not going to be a crawl, but I don't think it's that fast of a pace. Mischief River, more of a, 6.5 furlong, a miler type speed horse. So I wouldn't look for this to be one of those turf sprints that absolutely collapses.
And we will kick things off here with the number 1 Litigation for Brian Lynch and Stone Farm. A horse that's 3 for 5 in his career, has been in excellent form since that freshening. We only saw him twice kind of earlier in the year. They gave him some time off. They've regrouped. He's got a maiden win on the dirt, and more recently 5.5 furlongs. Just feels like it is a good distance for him. Maybe he can go further. Maybe he can go 6.5. But I think when you start to look at turf sprint, Scott, it's always the distance. There is a big difference going from 5 and then every 16th that you add. I love knowing that 5.5 has worked out really well for him.
Very good point. Both the surface and the distance have been to his liking. Clearly, he moved forward, though, it looks like, after the spring, like you mentioned. Brian Lynch, Mario Gutierrez has been the winning tandem in both of these. This one time drawn down towards the inside probably should lead to a good pocket trip for this horse, who was much the best two back and good enough to beat the horse that won the grade 1 at Kentucky Downs, the Franklin Simpson, last out troubleshooting. So Litigation is a serious turf sprinter, it appears, as a 3-year-old.
The 2 Big Boat going to try the turf for the first time, a horse that's 2 for 9 in the career. When he won on debut, loved the way that he did it. He was able to close from off of it, and his more recent win was very different, very forward from the get-go, just opened up on the field against non-winners of 2 Life. And I don't know, I'm not necessarily completely discouraged by his last 2 performances. I think there are some things to maybe nitpick and to see room for improvement, but it's the turf now. To see the surface change, it's not like it's an easy spot to do it. I'm always a little bit more cautious when you just see no turf races and then you're in a pretty tough turf allowance.
Yeah, it does feel like this is a little stabby, taking a chance here. Good early in the career, so good in that debut that they tried the Breeders' Futurity at a big price. There's some pedigree on the bottom side to suggest maybe the turf surface switch could be fine. Half sister to Elstown, who earned over $250K on mostly the turf. I think the advantage he has is speed and a good rider in Jose Ortiz, but if he's not a big price, he would not be a favorable wager, in my opinion.
The 3 Jet Sweep. Joe, you look through his form last time out. He was unable to light the lamp, ended up being the winner, and he didn't fare all the best this weekend in the Grade 2 Near Arctic up at Woodbine, but he's faced Governor Sam. He's faced some pretty good horses as you go down the past performances, and once in a while, I feel like he does pop a big race, but I guess for me, Scott, the knock against him is while he's been in graded stakes competition 2 out of the last 3, I just don't like any of his last 3 races that make me think that maybe he's going to take a step forward and pop one of those bigger races.
Paul McEntee loves taking shots. Like you said, occasionally his horses pop at the right time. I think I saw him win at a big price at Ellis a couple summers back, but My problem with this horse, on top of all the good stuff that you mentioned, is when he was at his best, I thought was early or last summer, and he was showing speed, and he just isn't really showing that speed anymore. So coming from off the pace in this race seems like a real tall task.
The number 4, Cheval de Guerre here for Riley Mott, has done very little wrong. Actually, interesting to see the progression here because we see this one at Keeneland, second on debut, then makes the trip out to Ascot and doesn't fire, and then needed a lot of time to regroup, over 13 months to regroup. But I really think the last 2 have been quite good. And when we think about turf sprints, you talked about the rail runner maybe getting the right trip. I think the same can be said about this runner and the fact that he's forward, but he doesn't need the lead. And I feel like, kind of looking at his race last time out, I thought it was a really, really solid effort.
It was. I think he took advantage of a really good trip that day, but it was a solid effort. This is a big step up in class is my biggest question, but you get a good rider, obviously, in Irad, who has tremendous numbers in Keeneland turf sprints, even exceeding his own numbers. So he's very likely, I guess you could say, to get another good trip. We'll see how he takes to the class test.
The 5, Warheart. This is a drop in class out of grade 1 competition at Kentucky Downs. Prior to that, a really nice win at Colonial off a little bit of a freshening. And he's a tough read for me because I do feel like there are races that I like from him, and there are other races that I really can't make an excuse for and just wanted to see more. But off the class relief alone, I think he's a horse to look at, and maybe we disregard the races that are at 6.5 at Kentucky Downs. We typically do that for a lot of runners, so why not him as well?
That's fair. He did win at Kentucky Downs on September 5th of last year, so maybe it just was the competition too. But he had at the blinkers 2 starts back. I don't know if it really did all that much. His lone recent win outside of the one at Colonial was in front running fashion. I think he's going to get a good trip here. That's the one thing I'll say. Third off the layoff under Tyler. So Warheart, to me, I mean, I don't really think any of the long shots, if you will, in this race are going to win. But I think maybe if one is, he's one of them.
The number 6 for Larry Ravelli, can't deny it. Jareth Loveberry has the call. First start in quite some time. Last saw this one down at the fairgrounds, but in terms of 5.5 furlongs, undefeated on the grass at the distance, has plenty of speed. I think the buyer is eye-catching, but it is a little tough to then factor in the long layoff.
Long layoff for sure. And Larry Ravelli has good numbers in just about every category, so it's hard to gauge. His numbers are a little lower off the break, but it does look like he's not a trainer that, from what I understand, and when he's brought horses in Kentucky, that really work horses, totally regularly. But this horse has been working regularly and quick, albeit at Hawthorne. I just think his 2 turf sprints are good. And circling back to the point that you made with the one horse with Litigation, I think he's really good at 5.5 furlongs on the turf, and that's kind of the thing that matters in these races. And maybe these are the kinds of races that you can win off a little break. And Jareth Loveberry is Ravelli's main man in spots like this.
Yeah, you bring up the workout tabs. He's had 6 works since his return. They actually worked him after his last race about 13 days, and then he went to the sidelines for about 4.5 months in terms of published drills. The number 7, Mischief River, we saw could be close to it, but also has the late pace flag, the LP flag, and kind of looking at that, it's interesting. We'll take a look at the most recent performance. That was at Kentucky Downs, which again, tough read, but a horse that has obviously been in good turf form. Was able to finish third 2 starts back after rolling from off of it. They cut him back from 1 mile to 6.5 at Kentucky Downs, and he was forward, and it wasn't like he was crawling on the front end.
No, and he was almost 20-1 hanging in there to win that race. So this is a cool horse. I don't know if 5.5 furlongs is a little too sharp, and if maybe he's the kind of horse that wants to be, do his best running close to the lead. He might get in chase mode early, but the late pace Chiclet being over him is useful. I think it's cool that he's won on dirt. He's won on turf already in his career through 8 starts. You don't see a lot of horses that can just run on both surfaces like that.
Yeah, and he's graded stakes place on the dirt. And interesting to see Frankie Dettori listed. He's been off to a very good start at the Keeneland meet, sort of carrying the momentum from Kentucky Downs to Keeneland. Then rounding out the field is the number 8, Operation Sunrise here for Bill Mott. 2 for 3 in the career. Might have needed the first race. Obviously, they regrouped after that. I don't think anyone really wants to kind of debut on a yielding surface, especially going long. I think horses typically tire. That's exactly what happened. But the last 2, they've been easy wins. We saw it in the pace projector, has the outside draw, likely to be forward. I think for a horse like this, we saw the horse win at 6 at Kentucky Downs. I mean, 5.5, I actually kind of like the move back to 5.5 at a normal configuration.
Clear one to beat in here. I think it's mostly price sensitive, how short of a price you want to take and whether you think he's going to have things totally his way on the front end for the third straight race. Did ride a good rail and they ran 1, 2, 3 around the course in that Ellis race, but I thought he earned it on August 30th in Kentucky Downs. If he's loose on the lead, they probably are running for second place.
Free pass performances for the Thursday race, the day race number 6 at Keeneland. Don't forget to check those out on the DRF website. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out all the content that we have. Podcasts. We have a lot of previews, a lot of ticket kind of construction videos. Scott, a lot of good stuff out there. And so we move to our top selections here. Mentioned the 8 in a lot of ways. Operation Sunrise is the horse to beat. And interestingly enough, we both use him in the 3rd spot. We'll get creative in terms of the top 2. You go to the 6th, can't deny it.
Might be wishful thinking, but I do think the 6 and 1 are pretty equals to him if the race shape is fair and if the price is going to be double or 50% more. I think that's definitely noteworthy. I see you went to Litigation, pretty hard to knock that one.
Yeah, I think a lot comes down to how you see the race panning out, especially at 5.5 furlongs. I think if the 8 is pressed, who's pressing? It's probably the 2. It's probably the 7. I didn't have any arguments with the pace projector, and with that in mind, I think Litigation sits the trip, sits off of it, and is able to save some ground. So ends up being my top pick. But a lot of similarities here in terms of our top 4. 6-1-8-2 for Scott, 1-4-8-6 for me. Don't forget, it's race number 6 this Thursday out in Lexington at Keeneland. Good luck.